So hi there, Dave Dobbs here. It's the what's it? It's the seventh of December 2016. It's quite a day today, beautiful day. It's light sort of chemtrailing that's going over everything, but actually it's a pretty good day. But you can see they're trying to cover something. I haven't made a video in a while. I needed a break from the whole thing really. It's been such an intense thing to charter the kind of the movement of Nibiru that since the last video that I put up, when I said it was, I think that NASA said there was going to be a big flyby of some asteroid or something on the 23rd of September. And then there was, in the last video I posted a shot that was on the 22nd, that was caught by someone on the 22nd. I'll put that up in a shake. And then we had a satellite image that Steve Olsen put up on WSO. I'll stick that up as well. And I brought those images in, and they were right on track with the timeline that I've been talking about for really the last year and a half now. Charting the movements and charting the every flyby that we're expecting on the timeline that I've been using. And I'll go through the timeline for later in this video for those who aren't completely up to date with it, but. It's been a difficult thing to talk about for me, really, especially in this coming up, because last year I said it would fly by on the 22nd of December, and we had the two pieces of footage, that one came in on the 20th of December and one came in on the 24th of December. Either side, 2 days either side of the date that I predicted it was going to pass, but. I did think it was going to be a lot worse than that. Admittedly, it did flood quite heavily in England, and it did flood quite heavily in France, and we had the biggest storms we've ever seen during that time. In actual fact, we had the biggest storm we'd ever witnessed in kind of our kind of modern day sort of known history of storms. We had the biggest storm in the Pacific that had ever been witnessed. We had incredible kind of like geological changes. We had a lot of things that I just personally don't feel really fit fully into climate change. That camp. I'm not anti-climate change or anything else like that. It's just that I just don't think that climate change is the argument that is the climate change camp is the argument that really fits the kind of geographical, the kind of the changes that we're getting aren't being really captured by the name climate change in itself. And I've watched it more from global cooling, or global warming should I say, and then global warming got so cold that we had to call it global cooling, and the whole argument was stuck between these sort of two camps, and then it sort of they kind of settled on climate change. So I realised it's a very difficult subject for us all to move around, because there's so many different camps and so many different things involved, and we've got all this carbon trading kind of going on the back of this climate change camp as well, that it becomes a very, very difficult thing for us to move around and actually see the bigger picture if we hold too much on one specific camp here. Let me just show you this image as well, which is they're just photographs that I took. I thought it was a chemtrail at first on the 31st of October, and it looks like a chemtrail, except it's got a massive, great orb, call it a planet, whatever you like, in front of it. It didn't fit into my timeline at all, and I was really puzzled by what it was. And then we had, following that, we had the Japanese earthquake and the small tsunami that came with it. We had the New Zealand earthquake and the small tsunami that came with it. We've had sinkholes opening up. We've had a lot of unusual geological change that came, and I honestly wasn't expecting that to occur. I really wasn't. I certainly wasn't expecting to be able to get that with a 300mm lens. Obviously, it still could be a chemtrail. I'm not saying it's not a chemtrail. It just doesn't look like a chemtrail. I don't really know what it is. I personally don't think it's Nibiru, because I'd already showed you Nibiru passing, and Nibiru would have been too far away from us at that stage. You know, for me, Nibiru is on the way back in now, and it's going to be very close to the sun as it comes back towards us. If the timeline I'm putting forward is correct. Certainly last year, like I say, I thought it was going to be the big year last year, and it wasn't nearly as bad as what I thought it was. And really, that is just, for me, it just kind of gave us an extra year. Unfortunately, we come to the next, we see a 200-day cycle of this thing, and we've had, we saw the penultimate 200-day cycle round about sort of like June, July of this year, and then we were on the far side of the solar system to Nemesis, so we weren't going to get a massive effect, but we certainly were going to see it. And as we tracked in towards this big flyby that we're coming into now of the whole Nibiru system, to go over the whole system, that 200-day point, just counting the days here, that's all I'm doing. I'm trying not to go into any, I'm not a scientist, so really all I'm doing here is literally counting the days between all the different corroborated testimonies we've got, which averages out at 200 days. Remember, we don't get, if you were to use the same maths that I'm using here, or the same system to work out the next full moon, how many full moons would you need to calculate the next full moon? If between two full moons would give you enough data to predict the next full moon, if you can calculated 3 full moons and calculated the days between, you'd have a much more likely chance of calculating the exact date. But one obviously would, the distance between just 2 would obviously do it. But the more you get, the more likely it is that your observations are correct. And we've had so many observations of Nibiru occurring every 200 days, with NASA telling us there's going to be no end of flybys, and yet all the corroborated testimonies or videos of something flying by all fall around about 200 days apart. And now, as we're getting this new flyby coming in, we're hearing that the new big comet that's going to arrive perfectly on time with this sequence is going to be what is it? Comet Honda.
Comet may break +10 magnitude and become very briefly visible in the first few weeks of December before getting too close to the sun to observe in late 2016 and crossing into the morning sky in early 2017.
And I'm expecting them to come up and tell us there's going to be another flyby just when this thing is due, because that's what they do, and that's what they've done every time. And so, but it's a heavy thing to put out, and it's a heavy thing to say there's going to be a big flyby, because it creates fear. And I'm not trying to create fear. If I was trying to bring together information that was scary, I could really focus on the world events and war and all these terrible things. And we will have to obviously look at all these things in that video, because it's all happening now. But I'm not orchestrating this. I'm just observing it, and I'm putting the information together. I'm trying to make sense of it, so we can, if there is something going on, we can best prepare. And to be honest with you, I don't think there is going to be a lot of preparation. And if this is going to be the big flyby, it's going to block out our sun. And I don't know if this year is going to be the big flyby, but like I say, I thought last year was, and it wasn't as big as I thought it was going to be, and so I put my hands up to that, and I apologise. That I did get it wrong. I did get it wrong. I thought it was going to be much closer than that, and I thought that I really thought that it was going to be bigger than that. And like I say, you can fall into two camps and say he was wrong, or you can fall into the other camp and say, well, maybe, that was fortuitous that we've managed to sort of manage another year, or or perhaps it's just something different. Perhaps you just don't want to look at this at all, and that's also acceptable. I've got, to be honest with you, I don't want to look at it now, really. I just like to sort of move on, except that, when the 22nd of December came, I felt really like, oh, what have I done, and everything else like that. And then data started coming in that it really had flown by, and that my maths were right. Remember, I'm not NASA. I can only go by the sightings that we've got coming in and the 200-day cycles. I haven't got any high-powered sort of like, I'm limited in what I've got, basically, as we all are in this, and NASA's obviously not spilling the beans, really, and they're going to try and do their best to obviously sort themselves out and restrict the information from us. And we have to understand that if NASA has known this thing is coming in, and they could have warned Japan. You remember the 8.8 earthquake in Chile in 2010. It was late February 2010, and then early March, around about March the 11th, 2011. The subsequent year, when the Earth was almost in exactly the same place, but had moved 2 weeks further forward to early March 2011, and we saw the biggest earthquake we'd ever recorded. I mean, 8.8 in the previous year was the biggest earthquake ever recorded. And then we get a 9 on the Richter scale, and it causes, a massive tsunami. Thousands and thousands of people lose their lives, and there's no power station shut down or prepped to deal with a massive earthquake and tsunami. That if this thing has been up there and our governments have known about it, why didn't they prepare? Why didn't they shut down the power stations? And it is for this purpose that I make these videos, is because we can prepare. We've just seen, a week after sort of like the big sinkhole opened up in Japan and the earthquake, I think it was around about a week or so, France shuts down, 30% of all its nuclear reactors. 20 reactors got shut down in a day. So there is preparation going on some level. We're not allowed to know about it or see it. Our governments, our media won't touch it, just like they won't touch Fukushima, as if it didn't happen, and it's just being buried under, swept under the carpet. And so, are we merited to talk about this thing? Are you a doomer and gloomer? If you could have warned that Fukushima was coming in, and we absolutely knew that flyby was going on, could we not have shut down those reactors in preparation for that? Could we not have done that? And on that grounds, I think I have valid ground to talk about this and to bring awareness in, because that would have been so much more easy to contain if those reactors had been shut down during the flyby. But the media won't let us do that. The media won't let us address the situation. And I can promise you, all those who are doing this and knowing that this is coming in and not letting the world deal with it, and using these media mechanisms to control us and to brainwash us into to not seeing it. And so as a country and as a nation and as a world, we can't, as countries and as nations and as a whole world, we can't actually be allowed to take this on in ourselves and really properly believe this and see this, because we need the media to see this and to deal with it, because they will carry this. All of you journalists out there that know this is coming in, and all you editors and the executive editors of these big broadsheets and these big newspapers and these tabloids that call yourselves news outlets, and you're suppressing this. You've seen the pollution. We've virtually lost the Pacific to pollution, and we're not allowed to look at this. It's a tragedy. It really is. It's a total tragedy. And so I'm out here on my own, really, and I've been carrying the weight of that, realising that I'm not going to be able to reach people on that message. You've seen you probably see out on my video how many subscribers I've got, 5,000-6,000. You look at some video games subscriptions, and I saw one where someone had converted a video game for asteroids to sort of like it was, I can't remember what the video game was, but I saw that how many subscribers they had, and they had actually millions of subscribers, and I realised that that this is something that without the media to actually address this and help us deal with this as a combined globe, we're not going to deal with it, and we're going to see the same thing happen with Fukushima, but except that if we put the movements of this thing together, you know, we can pretty much see that this thing is inbound now. You know, we're you know, when we talk about a 200-day cycle, we can, in that cycle, we can break that up into two parts, into two half cycles of 100 days. And like I say, that from the 23rd of September right through to about mid-October, mid to late October, that was kind of like the 200. That was the 100-day point in this current 200-day cycle, and the 25th of January is the conclusion of that cycle, when it flies closest. But of course, when we talk about the full moon, I go back to counting days in the full moon. If you were to predict the next full moon, we don't get a full Nibiru, because it's never gone on the far side of Earth to the sun, which is what it required, what a full moon requires to be actually seen. As it's a dark moon, it's no, you know, dark moon is between the sun and the Earth, and so we can't see it. We only see it when it's directly on the far side of the Earth to the sun, and because of that, we never get to see exactly where Nibiru is. We only see it when it's coming in, and we only see it when it's going out. And it's not Nibiru that catches the sun, because it's between the Earth and the sun. It's its tail. And so it's very, very difficult to predict its exact central point. Its closest point of alignment between the sun and the Earth, like we can work out when we get the full moon. And so I say the 25th of January, that is on the timeline that I've put down, just counting the days between the sightings. And you remember the first sighting on the 5th of August 2011. There was another sighting by the same video maker on the 27th of August 2011. So we get this kind of window of 2 or 3 weeks between these. In every sighting, we normally get a few sightings either side of a date. You know, about sort of like a week, 2 weeks, nearly 3 weeks sometimes. You know, and when we're much closer to it, those sightings they vary even more. But it becomes very difficult for us to predict the exact time, and so it could be late December, it could be early January, it could be late January, but it's going to be somewhere in that period. And so it's very difficult for me to predict. I just don't know. We don't know. NASA knows, but NASA's not telling us. And NASA is going to make absolutely dead sure that there's no, that the information doesn't reach. They're a propaganda machine, total propaganda machine. And they're going to make everything. They're going to try and make sure that every one of those generators, as far as I can see, those nuclear generators, is not forewarned, or that's how it appears. As they would have warned Japan, and they would have shut down every generator when we were right over Nemesis, when the whole system came in. And what to do about that? So going back to this, the 31st of October this year, 2016, when I shot this image, we have two other times in the timeline I've put together. We have two other times another object has been seen with Nibiru, and I'll just show you those two and the dates there. Now, I think that this thing is this second object, and I'm of a mind that we're coming over the top of Nemesis now. Now, Jeff P. Put up a recent video just talking about my timeline and recently, and I'm sorry I haven't commented on anything on my especially to you, Jeff. But apologies. I've just needed to take a massive break from this whole thing for a while, until the first sightings of this thing actually came in. Because there's not a lot I can do. I've pretty much done everything I can. I've tried to get the information out there, and to a lot of people who make videos about Nibiru, my information has been It's been whether it's been useful, whether it's been interesting, whether you've been able to make any sense of it, whether I've been correct, whether I've been right to putting a date on those flybys. But for me, I just feel as if someone's got to put their money where their mouth is in all this, and say what they feel and what they think, and back it up with as much evidence as they can, and that's really all I'm doing. And there's a whole camp out there on the Nibiru side that believe that the whole dwarf system in itself is actually inbound at the moment. That it's all coming in from further away from the sun than Earth. What planets they there's different theories out there. It seems to be, certainly I feel Marshall Masters is of that camp, that it's quite far off, and the whole system is inbound, but it's far away from the sun. It's further away from the sun than Earth, like I say. I'm obviously not of that camp. I believe that it came in 2000. It came in 2010, 2011. At least that was the closest proximity to Earth as it came in, and it's come around. It's come around the sun, and now it's on its way out, and we're going to get the big bumps that we saw on the way in as it exits. And that's the big part that we're going into now, and because we are going over the top of Nemesis now, we are going to start seeing elements of this whole system now going to the night sky, because it's always been for the last since 2000, certainly since 2010 2011, it's all been occurring between us and the sun. So it's been very difficult for us to see. We've been blinded by the light. And now as it comes out, we come to that point that you don't want to put a date on doom, but we've just had too many flybys to really kind of get around to really what to make of that. So there you're kind of in it there, and if this object I took on the 31st is this other object, this second object that I'm of mind is orbiting closer to the Nemesis system, where Nibiru is the furthest orbiting planet, orbiting Nemesis and a whole system of planets therein. Then this other thing, what I have no name for, we are quite close to that, and that's why I think we had the earthquakes following its sighting, because it was inbound, but not very close to Earth, but close enough to certainly cause a few earthquakes, certainly to cause the sort of earthquakes we saw in New Zealand and Japan, because they just didn't fit into any other picture, and yet there we see this thing flying in. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe it's not, maybe I'm incorrect there, but it corroborates, and we are kind of expecting to see it, because we don't know its rotation period like we do with Nibiru, but we know it's up there. We know we're quite close to its orbital path, and there it comes in. It was an unexpected blow. Like I say, I have no doubt NASA knew that one was going to fly by, but unfortunately they weren't prepared to give warning. And like I say, maybe I'm completely wrong with this, and unfortunately there is a lot of corroborating testimony to back up what I'm saying, but if the mainstream media is not touching it, does it mean it's not true? If NASA doesn't tell you it's there, does it mean it's not true? Is it all just climate change? Are we willing to look at a bigger picture here? Certainly the earthquakes are happening under the Pacific Ocean, the blob, and it's causing all this moisture to come up, because it's literally heating up the Pacific, and it's throwing up enormous amounts of moisture out of the Pacific. And I believe that that is the big key to causing the El Niños and everything else like that. And obviously it smacks in the face of everyone who's fracking, everyone who's protesting against fracking, and you know, I'm not trying to take away from that argument. I just can't imagine fracking to be causing all these earthquakes, all these volcanoes to be going off. You know, they're not fracking under the Pacific Ocean at that point. Can this be doing this? You know, is it causing the Earth's axis to shift? Is it causing all of these massive geological changes and Earth shifting and you know, and we have to hold so tightly onto that because we're so terrified that we've got to keep a real tight grip on these rogue corporations that invest in these horrific practices of pumping toxic chemicals into the ground, into our water tables and everything else of that. And please, I'm so not trying to take away from that is wrong. You know, it's just that it just seems that something much bigger is also at play here. And so we're in a very difficult situation. So there's that. We've got this footage here from WSO with it's Steve Olson with Wayne Steiger. It's the 6th of December, this video they've just posted, so it's yesterday. And they've got this red orb that they're discussing. I forget the details of where it is exactly. I think Wayne Steiger's about to tell me in the video. But rather than play that through, I'll just put a clip of that over the top, and I'll write the details in text afterwards where it is. But it's a very strange orb. Great video, by the way, Wayne and Steve. I'll leave the link there. And then we've got Jeff P here again, releasing a video he released on the 3rd of December, showing a very similar thing. I'll show you a few clips from this video also. It's I forget where it is. Also, exactly. I'll put a link. I'll put exactly where it is, and the link to the website so you can see. And hopefully, I'll be able to write it in the description. But you can see there's various things he's identifying in this video, and it's you know, he's got a whole time lapse here. It's over. It's California, and so he's got the sunset coming over here from some webcam. And he's showing some anomalies here, and he also shows the moon come out. It becomes full and then goes to its kind of, I don't think it's neap at the moment, but it's going from sort of it's come from a new moon, and it's opening out, and suddenly it goes into full moon and then back to where we're expecting it to be at the moment. It's very unusual. So I'll just put a few flashes of that video. Another great video, Jeff. Apologies, like I say, for not being very active on the channel just of late. Really, there's just been nothing for me to say really, and I don't want to be selling this. You know, I've got no advertising on the channel or anything else like that, and I'm not trying to do this to try and get subscribers or anything else like that. I'm just trying to get the information out there and let people take from it what they will, you know, and. So so that's an interesting video, and then I just want to come over to last, just about, you know, any evidence of this thing coming in now on well, Dill Martin's posted this shot that was filmed in Canada on the 23rd, and I'll just show you a bit of this. I mean, it could be Venus. I mean, it does seem too big to be Venus. I don't know what that light is, but I will show you just very briefly this footage I took the other day. I forget the date of it. Hopefully I'll have the date that I put the video up on the... hopefully I'll be able to put the date up in a moment for that, because I'm not too sure of the exact date. But I saw Venus. Well, I saw another planet. We were told it was Sirius, and I filmed it. And or I took a video of it, and took various shots of it. and which was similar to this shot, except that it was very much in the night sky, and it just didn't fit. I mean, I've seen Sirius before, and I've never seen anything like that. To me, it looks like the very same thing that I shot on the 31st of October, except it's now in our night sky and it's heading down. I don't think it's Sirius at all. I think it's just too big to be Sirius, so I'll put that up as well. And Dill made a video before as well, if I can find it, and it was I believe he posted it on the 27th of November, but it was filmed on the 16th of November 2016. So it was filmed in McGill, West South, WSW. I'm assuming West Southwest, McGill, Australian weather cam, 16th November 2016, and if we look at this thing as it follows the sun down, it could be a lens flare, admittedly, except it does seem to go directly behind this shield-like thing. Whatever this thing, like I say, it could be a lens flare, and Dill, obviously is open to the idea of being to be a lens flare, but also he's of an idea that he says 3 lens flares arrowed and possible planets circled. Let's have a closer look at this planet. And we're seeing it, what looks like it disappears behind something. Now it could be a lens flare, except that it leaves this tiny little kind of, it reflects off the side of this thing, which just doesn't fit into any kind of lens flare category, and it goes halfway and then completely disappears behind it. Now I'm of a mind that this is the shield that I've been showing, or Steve Olsen first, or Steve Olsen with Wayne Steiger first really brought my attention to this. Perhaps I'd seen it in a few places before, but they really brought it to the public light, really, and so credit to them for doing that. Nibiru is unbelievable, and now I'm saying that there's potentially another even smaller Nibiru, though we've seen it in a couple of other shots closer to the Nibiru system, and then we're talking about a massive great shield that seems to have 3 fundamental effects. So I've kind of made it into this. I've kind of incorporated my ideas of what this shield is into this basic video here for you. I'm of a mind it's doing 3 fundamental things. Firstly, it's creating a screen to block out the sight of this thing, because I think it would terrify us, and I think it's there to give us a more settling experience. And every time something goes off in front of the sun, one of these systems goes in front of the sun, it creates. It's basically that's the first thing it's doing. It's creating a screen. The second thing I think it's doing is it's collecting a massive amount of solar energy, which it's converting into gravitational energy, and using that energy to pull us through and past the whole Nemesis system when we go past it, or the Nibiru system, whatever you want to call it. The dwarf system that has come through our solar system. And the third thing I think it's doing is it's deflecting a lot of the debris that's coming off this thing. And it's also unbelievable, unfortunately, that we just can't believe any of it, really. And this is a big problem in this, but this is also our saving grace in this, because humanity in itself is, in my mind, being massively, it's being subverted at the moment, and we are in a massive deception, a massive lie, a massive story, and that story is falling apart at the moment on so many different ways, and everything that our governments are doing to try and hold it together is everything that's making it fall apart more and more. We've seen all the pictures of coming in of in stereo Secchi that's showing us, since 2007 we've seen this thing up there. Like I say, we struggle to believe in it. We struggle to believe any of it, and really my advice to you is don't believe it. You know, just be open to all the ideas, and don't cling to any argument too tightly that you're so rigid that you can't open your eyes to anything else, because you're restricting your ability to see a bigger picture, because we've just got to relax now a little bit and open ourselves to this much bigger thing. And if this thing is coming in now, we're going to have a big solar eclipse, and that's going to be very unsettling, and that's going to be a very, very, very big thing to deal with. And how to deal with that is it's going to be a big test. You know, if there really is going to be a massive solar eclipse, it's how do you on a psychic level and on an emotional level, let alone any physical preparations that you could get together, you know, and provisions that you could set about bringing together. How do you deal with that on a bigger level? You see, everything's happening now on a massive level. You know, we've seen what's happening with Europe. Europe is now being deemed the big bad new world order, and so everything is being done by powers that be to break up the European Union, and thus effectively break the euro. And that's all being done because a new currency, as you've probably been hearing about, is taking off. And that's all to do with the AIIB, which is the Asian Infrastructure and Investment Bank. And what's happening there really is, you've seen this whole thing with India, where India's they're getting rid of all the 500 and 1,000 rupee notes. And the reason they're doing that is they're embarking on entering. They're saying that it's all about kind of like, you know, getting all the black money out of the system and getting rid of all the forgeries and that sort of stuff. And there could be some merit in that. There could be some truth in that. But also we have to understand that India is the second biggest investor outside of Russia in the AIIB, this new gold-backed investment bank. And of course, a gold-backed currency to a speculative-based currency like the euro and like the dollar and like the pound is like to a vampire, unfortunately. But then after Russia, in terms of investment in the AIIB is actually Germany, and of course this is, you know, America didn't get the red carpet treatment when they went to for the big G20 in China, did they? And of course America's not paid up into this at all. They're putting. We can see what's happening here, is that the European Union is falling apart, I think, because, you know, the way in which the whole policies the way in which the European Union is run, and the fact that there's not enough people vote in the system, that so few people turn out to vote in it. It's, you know, it's what, 50% turnout. We saw the same thing kind of in the US presidential elections. You know, this. I don't know what Trump's like. I certainly don't like the notion of building a big wall and kind of demonizing all these Muslims and everything else like that. You know, whether he's really doing that, I don't know. But trying to get rid of pushing everyone out of the country, and this kind of like this demonizing all these people. And if we're absolutely honest, they're not all rapists and immigrants. They're refugees fleeing the destruction from weapons that we've sold to that region. We've caused so much mayhem there, you know. And every time they bring up the European certainly in the West at the moment, it's all, you know, they bring Tony Blair's face into it, and Tony Blair is used as this. He's the glove puppet they put on to sort of like the European Union, and they bring out Tony Blair, and so. You know, in France and in Britain, you know, Tony Blair he's not a popular man. I think probably in the worldwide he's not a popular man, you know, because of what happened with the Iraq War and the amount of, you know, no one wanted that war. 2 million people turned out to vote against it or to protest against it. the same in France here. You know, that McDonald's took the name Freedom Fries, or they took the name French fries out of their away from their fries, because France wouldn't join the Iraq War, and so the fries were then called French fries. And of course, you know, we saw sort of like Jose Bove, who drove a truck through McDonald's, and we've seen massive grassroots actions in France, and much of that was in protest to Tony Blair's war with Iraq, which I didn't support, and I'm sure you didn't support, and it's much like when Fukushima went off and David Cameron invaded Libya in the wake of that, or should I say NATO invaded Libya in the wake of that, and we didn't want that either, except that everyone was in such shock with Fukushima. And of course, when the European Union breaks apart, what are you left with? The only thing that's holding all these nations together then is NATO. And so we just become basically NATO. The European alliance falls away, and no one's really voted on it and voted in the elections, and so the only people who've really voted are the really kind of the more extreme right, and so European Union is falling into the hands of the extreme right, which will now do everything they can to derail it, and then you fall, and then blame everything on Europe, and then of course you fall into the hands of NATO. And we know what happened when in 2010, 2011, especially when the big passage of this came by, NATO went into all-out war with Libya to put the message out that we certainly this nation, this area of the globe is at war. And so we can pretty much predict what NATO's going to do with the next flyby, because they want to put a message out that we are a world of war. Because, and this is, you know, it's also difficult to believe, but unfortunately, the assistance that comes in, that we're being given at the moment to deal with this, is coming from much bigger gods than those gods that are ruling over this world at the moment. And we just come into categories of just no end of, it's just impossible for us to believe. And so we're in a very tricky situation as to where to go now and how to get out of this. And so what I'd like to talk about now is why I wrote my book Laughing Gas. And before I go any further with that, can I just offer for anyone, just so it doesn't seem like I'm plugging a book here, I'll put a free download link in the introduction section of the video, or in the description of the video, so you can get the free copy of it, and you can reference it and see why I wrote it. And the reason I wrote it was to capture third, fourth, fifth, and sixth dimensions. And what I mean by that is, it's a way of looking at the different influences that are affecting this earth at the moment, and to understand fourth dimensional mind hacks, and how something can get into your head and guise itself as you, and plant thoughts and ideas into your head constantly, and feed a narrative into your head that is over and above your existence and your being. It's just there to subvert you and try to alter your sort of like path and course, and what you, and just to feed thoughts into your head. These are fourth dimensional mind hacks, and that, you see, humanity is not the enemy here. Humanity is not the problem here. The problem is that humanity is being influenced by a very dark agenda that wants control of this planet for its own ends, and wants all the intellectual property, as in life, to control for its own, also for its own end. And Earth is a rich pool of life, which from another perspective can be seen as just intellectual property that can be bought and sold. And if it can't, and if those that operate this fourth dimensional kind of TV for our heads, what we would call our thoughts, and so much of the subversion that goes on, for that to be shut down is and for humanity to have the opportunity to come into the true essence of its own presence on this earth, and have that opportunity to become full emotional beings, full beings in their own right, beyond the illusion of all that we think we are. Nibiru threatens that, and they cannot come in and assist us if we are of war, because they cannot assist anything that is of war, because they are largely the universe is largely at peace, and that which is of war is out there on its own. Really, it's not interacted with on higher levels as kind of understanding it, and dealing with these times and dealing with on an emotional level with this time is going to be, especially with an eclipse, if an eclipse does occur, it's going to be like a bit like an ayahuasca journey. And an ayahuasca is like it releases. Ayahuasca contains the active ingredients that actually the pineal gland that releases, that makes you dream. And it also has in the plant these monoamine oxidase inhibitors, which are chemicals which restrict your body's ability to metabolize the chemical that makes you dream, the DMT. And so in ayahuasca, you're just taking something that makes you dream, basically. It brings you into a very lucid state. And in that state, you open the door to a lot of experiences that come in through your dreams. And with those experiences, they bring a lot of emotions, which can lead to fear, and that fear can open yourself to negative energy as well as not going into that fear and opening to very high sources of information and wisdom, if you like, and knowledge and understanding about the deeper elements of your purposes here on this planet. It also can open up, like anything, through fear. You can open yourself up to lower astral activity, and with that, other fourth dimensional mind hacks that can disrupt your life. And so it's a risky thing to do in some ways, ayahuasca, and that's why it's best done in ceremonies with people that you trust, shamans, and holding a circle. And in that space, when you're holding a circle and you're going into this with a very, very high intentions and very positive, powerful, peaceful intention, ayahuasca can become a very, very powerful tool to access deeper parts of yourself. But it's not just ayahuasca that we can lower our vibrations. If we choose to use it negatively or go into negative ceremony, you don't need ayahuasca to repeat the same thing. It's just sometimes we do the same thing, but we just don't realise we're doing the same thing. We're lowering our vibrations with certain practices that we do, whether it's through drugs, through sort of like through dark ceremony, through whatever it is, through sacrifices, through whatever someone chooses to as a mechanism to, if they specifically want to lower their vibration. You don't need ayahuasca to do that. I can assure you, there's so many ways that people can lower their vibration, and there's so many ways that people can raise their vibration. And when I wrote Laughing Gas, which was a journey through these realms, and a way of dealing with raising your vibration and a way of coming through the noise and coming into your heart. And when I wrote it, before I wrote it, I went to my father and I said, Dad, I've been told in an ayahuasca ceremony that I'm going to write a book. And I know it's a bit weird, and he died a couple of years ago, but he said, son, all I can tell you is, if you want to write a book and you want to learn to do some of the things because he was, like I say, an incredible channel. If you want to learn some of the things that I've been, the way to do what I've been doing, channeling, you have to, you've got to understand you're not special. That there's nothing coming to you that's because you're special. So what comes to you will be merited by the effort that you're willing to put in. It has to be a practice. You have to dedicate yourself to it, and there has to be a very specific high vibrational intention for the betterment of of the world at large, and for great healing when you're doing these type of practices, you have to really, really work with that intention, and you have to turn it into a practice. And for me, that practice was trying to simulate ayahuasca, but by getting up at 5 o'clock every morning for 4 years, never missing a day, really. And obviously I did occasionally miss a day, but wherever I missed, I would make up, and I would work for 6 hours every day, and I'd write everything that came through me, and I'd start trying to chronicle various parts of myself and try to raise that vibration and try to work with specific understanding, specific problems in the world, and writing myself into those problems and taking myself as far as I could, because it always told me, I said, what would I say? And it said, you write half and I'll write half. And so going into that and going on this journey through these realms, coming right through this kind of fourth dimensional mind hack, trying to come through all this doubt and this insecurity and come through to this beautiful space of absolute presence, where I wasn't fighting to be in that space and I wasn't doubting that space. I was able just to be in that space and hold that space. And it's this space that hopefully at the end after the Nibiru passage, we're all going to be able to find this passage and find this space. That's what Nibiru intends to bring here. It's not about total all-out destruction. And I know I come up here to the mountains and I say, get as high as you can. But honestly, I come up here because that's where I need to come high to the mountains. That's where I wrote Laughing Gas mostly, was up in the Himalayas, up in the mountains. And I need to come to a space where I feel is separated enough from the noise so I can come into that space and work with the energies that I work with during these times. And that's the space that you really want to try and find during this, especially with the passage of Nibiru, if it blocks out the sun. Whether that's going to happen in this cycle, whether it's going to be the next cycle, or whether I've completely got my, just counting the days here and trying to work out, I've tried to work out the position of Nemesis by counting the days between Nibiru and the size of the sizes and the biggest geological effects when it's moved, and still I don't know if I'm correct. Now the sinkholes just open up in England, I've heard, and there's changes going on. It's like I say, I think we're going over that system right now. I think we're literally coming into it and going over it, the whole system right now. But I might be wrong, I might be incorrect. No one came up to the mountains last year really, when I said it was gonna come by. I don't know if there's any real preparation that is going to be done on it, which means that the only preparation that you're left with is the preparation that you're willing to take, is you're willing to look at it on some sort of level now and be ready to deal with that on a spiritual level. And part of that, dealing with that, is coming into your intentions on this planet right now. Have you got any bad intentions for anyone? Are you in this camp where, think about the whole refugees things. These people are fleeing. They're fleeing the war-torn areas that all of this austerity money that's been drained out of our economies to sort of finance all these wars. That's what these people are fleeing. They're going to try and ask you to come into a lot of hate now and a lot of anger and demonize these people because of their religion and because they're immigrants, because they want to blow us up. And actually, our governments have orchestrated so much war in these areas, and we know what they've done, and we know what they're trying to do. They're trying to take us into war. And is this your war? On an individual level, is this your war? Have you got any compassion for these people? And track your intention. Are you of this camp that's going to demonize all these people? Or which side of the camp are you going to be on in this? Are you at peace? I realise that there's going to be there's going to be bad things that are going to happen here, and there's bad things that are happening here. But there's a lot of innocent people in this, and there's a lot of propaganda, and somehow through all of this, you're going to have to try and psychically, spiritually, and emotionally track a journey through it. And you're going to try and you're really going to try and want to find as much compassion as possible in yourself, and decide whether this is your hate, whether this is your war, whether this is your aggression, whether all of this is, you really created all of this, and try and come into enormous great forgiveness for all of that's going on now. And think about all the people that you love in this world. Try and, especially if, I can't say believe in God or anything else like that, because I don't really believe in belief. I just don't think belief is necessary in this right now, but that's my opinion. I think finding a beautiful space inside of yourself, the most sacred space that you have, be it through the kids that you love, be it through your mother, the love you have for your mother, your father, through someone who's really, really been there, or maybe animals that you've absolutely loved, or whatever it is. Maybe it's a deity, whatever it is that truly opens up your heart to the highest frequency. Try and access that space, and try and align yourself to that space, especially during this eclipse, because it's going to be a very unsettling time. If that happens in this cycle, it's going to be very unsettling, and there's no one who's going to be able to believe in that until that moment comes. And when that moment comes, that's going to be the challenge for us all, to really find that space and to really try and be there for other people that are unsettled. Really take them by the hand. You'll see the people that are really struggling with that. Try and help them through that. And I'll keep posting a few images up here and there of stuff coming in, but I can't see that there's going to be massive preparation, and I can't see me being able to communicate this message to. You can see how I get so attacked on the sort of on the comments and that sort of stuff, and they're not there really to attack me. They're there to attack you. They're there to stop you from considering this information, and to make sure to give lots of scope for all of those that would prepare for this, not to make them not prepare. And they don't really do it. Those who do that, they're not really fully aware they're doing that. They just believe they believe the notion in their heads, and they run with this noise and this anger, and they've been brought into it. They've been trained into this, and so also you have to have compassion for them and not get angry, because even if when you work on that, I found that when I work on one specific person who's absolutely attacking me fully, sometimes I can work with that person long enough to sort of if anything, make them realise that I genuinely believe what I'm putting up, or I've really done the maths on what I'm putting forward, and I am of a mind to know myself that that's there, and that I'm genuinely offering information, and that I'm not some shill. But obviously will always be those people that say shill, which say kind of whatever they'll put out, But I've tried as hard as I can to try and offer as much corroborated testimony as I can. The proof's in the pudding. Like I say, most people think that it didn't happen last year when I said it would fly by, and for that I'm truly sorry, and perhaps I shouldn't have put a date on that flyby. But if it had happened last year, and the effects, and I know a lot of people did lose their homes, and a lot of people did no doubt lose their lives in that process, and they were still pretty bad, the floods and that sort of stuff. But a lot of people would have. They cannot qualify that. They can't qualify that, because the problem is if we laugh at people and they say something, and we laugh at them, once we've allowed ourselves to laugh at them, then we cannot allow that information to be true. Which means that for those people that I said that, they cannot consider the information, which means that it has to be false to verify their, if you like, their piss taking, which means everything that I've said, therefore, is a reason not to look at and not consider the information. And that's heartbreaking. That's utterly heartbreaking. But how to talk about such a thing and have the courage to talk about such a thing is a very difficult thing as well. But if it's how to move forward with that now, how for anyone to be able to see this information. You know, we're for the main, most people are locked solidly in the climate change camp, and they have to be there to try and stop the fracking companies, and I see that. I see that. I don't know how to work around that. For me, fracking was more likely created as a means to blind you from dealing with Nibiru and Nemesis, because financially fracking doesn't really make sense. It's so expensive to do it, and for the gains and for the hatred, the fact it even came with its own rhyming slang, where it's been pieced together in such a way to create so much public outrage. And then government bodies openly admitting that it's fracking that's causing many of these earthquakes. Why would they even admit to it? You'd want to deny that for the case of lawsuits and everything else like that. But they say, well, openly say, oh no, that earthquake was caused by fracking, and that earthquake was caused by fracking, and it's just like, well, you know, why admit to this? Why try to draw attention away from something so massive? And of course, you know, this thing literally, when we're over the top of it, we're being pulled by whatever this shield thing is, and Nemesis is pulling us the other way, and we're getting, if you like, we're getting massively stretched at the moment, which affects our whole planet, and causes so many earthquakes and sinkholes and tsunamis and earth changes on so many different levels. You know, maybe it is fracking, but certainly the earthquakes below the Pacific, you know, I just can't see it. But apologies to all of those that are solidly in the climate change camp that can't go further than just man-made climate change. Apologies to you. I'm really not trying to rain on your parade there. You know, it just seems that climate change doesn't quite cut it. It's not quite big enough. But apologies. I'm really not. There is climate change. There is very clear climate change. I'm not trying to take that away. We can evidently see that. So what to do now? There's not a lot we can do or say now. There is, belief can't touch it, because you have, believe it or not, so little control over what you can allow in your own mind state, that it's a bit too big. The whole thing, the story's a bit too big. And there's a great blessing in that as well, in that when you are so lied to and you are so deceived by a controlling agenda, then there's great assistance that can be offered by very high energy when such a lie is in operation and such a deception is in operation against the greater good of mankind, to take a whole plane into war without our consent. Then there's, you know, as when I was shown Nibiru in a vision, and literally the words, I went to the vision, and I would have never spoken if I'd never been told that it was going to miss. But I said, it misses, doesn't it? After I'd been shown it, and it said, the answer I got from the space I go to was, yes, it misses. It is not human karma. it is deemed humanity is not a race of war, but a race subverted with war, and that will now change. And so that's all that's happening, and each of you will have to follow your instinct and follow your do what you think's best. You know, if you choose not to see it for whatever reason, you know, you think I'm a complete idiot, a shill, a liar, whatever hate that I bring up inside of you for talking about this, you know, all I can say is I'm so sorry about that. And for those of you who are following what I'm saying and realising that I'm really just trying to warn you and ask you to like prepare yourself on every level that you think you best need to prepare for this. If it's just psychically, if it's spiritually, if it's food provisions, if it's medical provisions, if it's water provisions, if it's geographical provisions, if it's seed provisions, whatever you choose to do, whatever you choose, whatever provisions you choose to take, you know, I think, you know, I'd encourage you to do all of them. But I've done all of them because right now I've just got to do and put into actions what I'm saying. As I'm really, you know, I'm the lowest of the low. If I'm not doing what I'm talking about, then I too am the lowest of the low. Because I can't do what I'm saying. I can't do what I'm talking about. And so I am, you know, this is the kind of the download from the up high in the Pyrenees. It's just do what you've got to do. Follow your truth in this. And all I can do is wish you the greatest luck. And when I say that, I'm talking about the assistance that comes in over and above with that which you can really kind of like logically explain. Good bits of fortune that come to you. To me, they're sent by the gods and the angels to assist you in this time. And so when I'm saying luck, I'm wishing you the greatest assistance from the highest possible vibrations out there that can assist you in this time.